Hi, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey guys, we've loved answering all of your questions so far. If you'd like to hear your question on the podcast, please send them to us on Instagram at Wheel Talk Podcast or by email to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks.
Hi.
We're live.
We're live.
Hi.
Hi. Did anybody
Alright.
message us about was the last episode the one that we were like, is Becca's recording better than Ryan? Did anybody message us?
We did talk about that. I don't believe we got a message about it. Have you checked our messages?
No. I should.
We started getting some help on the Instagram account in the last week or so.
Lindy and
Ashley
are helping, and they're doing amazing. I was like, wow, our stories look really fucking good.
Yeah, it's fun to just pull them up and you see something new because you're like, I know I didn't post it, so it's like I wonder what they posted, you know?
Yeah, it's fun, and they're like both really good at those type of things. So that's been great to see. So now
I don't see a comment yet. So if y'all hear a difference, we're on different microphones now. So another chance for those to give some feedback if you have any.
There was a little volume difference in the last episode that I was really trying to fix, and I felt like I never really got it. But we think we fixed it with this one, so we'll see. But yeah. How was your day? How are you doing?
It's good. Today's Sunday, so it's a little out of the ordinary to be recording on a Sunday. But my parents were in town this weekend.
Yeah.
So I had a date night Friday at Baker Hunt. Taught one of those. That was my last one of the session. So I have another one. I don't have another one until April, I think.
Oh, good.
So I get some time, which is nice. And then Saturday, hung out with the family.
Tell us about the show.
We went to, let's see, what was it called? I think it's called 20th Century...
Mid something?
It was called what is it? Okay, there we go. 20th Century Show or something. I'm terrible. I don't know. Rachel shared it with me. It's just called 20th Century Sensi Show, but that's not right. So it's basically like a thrift show or...
It's a mid-century modern thrift show.
Yeah.
And it's big, right?
Yeah, it was pretty big. It was in like a convention hall.
Yeah.
It was in just like one huge room, and then there was like a side room.
Yeah.
There was probably about 100 booths, maybe.
Wow.
Maybe 80.
Yeah, like Rachel takes pictures of some chairs, but then she like takes pictures of like bags and all the things, and then you're over here, and I was like, come on. And you took pictures of like a couch and a chair, and I'm like, thank God.
I would say the priciest items there are furniture, and that's probably what is getting out the door and these people are making their money on.
Oh yeah, that's what people go there for.
Yeah.
I mean,
the prices are outrageous, but it's like, how often are you going to be able to see that exact same thing? If you like it and you have the money for it,
and
it's kind of like you splurge on it.
That's the issue with mid-century modern, like actual mid-century modern, and I'm not talking about mid-century modern style. I'm talking about actual mid-century modern that was made in the quote-unquote mid-century. It's like so... Once you find an item that you love, you really just have to buy it, you know? And it's like...
Yeah, you're playing for that exclusivity.
Yeah, if you never want
supply is so low.
Yeah, if you never want to see it again, then don't buy it.
Yeah. I mean, you could always like reupholster it, but like how good is reupholstering something where you're like, I really like this, but I wish it was this color.
Yeah.
Like, are you really going to spend that money to reupholster something and
still
spend $3,000 on a chair?
Yeah, exactly. Like I have a, it's mine, but not mine. It was mine. I was given the chair. We traded 8 cups for this chair, and it's $1,000 recliner mid-century chair. Actually, it was probably $3,000. It was Swedish, and
still have it?
No, because I gave it to a friend when I moved because I didn't have any room. And then I was like, you can borrow it indefinitely. And
didn't have any room.
Yeah. And I was like, you can borrow it indefinitely. And then I'll take it back when I want it. And then it just never came up. And now his aunt has it.
Because at what point do you like say, you know what? I've been thinking about that chair.
I
want it.
actually messaged him when I went back to Washington, and I was planning on taking it back. But but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It was the point I was going to say is that the woman who owned it reupholstered it, and the reupholster was not great. But it was still a beautiful chair, but it was reupholstered with striped green fabric, and it was not great. I wish it was like a gold mustard. Yeah. And more of like not like a shiny fabric, more of like a woven fabric. That would have looked better with the chair. Clearly, if you can't tell already, I love furniture. Anyway, mid-century modern. Yeah.
It was amazing, yeah. There was so much. There was a lot of people there, and the prices were crazy. But I still get, we see there was a handful of Eames chairs, and you see them at $5,300, and you see that they marked as sold, and you're like, holy crap, I would love to have one of those someday. But,
yeah,
people enjoy them.
How do I put the do not disturb? Oh, I'll put focus. Do not disturb. Okay. Okay. Good. I didn't realize that my computer would ding.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, if you hear the meowing, that is Marvel. I don't have a do not disturb for that sound.
Yeah.
So yeah, the show was great. We bought a cocktail shaker.
Oh yeah.
It's like a glass cocktail shaker with some gold accents on it, gold and green. And then it's got like a metal top, and it's cool. It's got like a little loop on the side of the lid that has like a stir spoon in it. It's like a gold spoon that you like stir the cocktail with. So that's pretty cool. I actually found that and was like, hey, Rachel, we need another one of these because we only have one that's like very big. Because normally we make doubles, and it's like you can't really fit that much in a small shaker. And I'm not going to mix the same exact thing twice, so. Yeah.
Seriously.
So we got that, and Rachel got like a decorative purse or something like that. So yeah, it's pretty sweet. So that was Saturday. Went to a Cyclones hockey game. That was great. I like watching hockey.
Yeah.
You haven't gone to one of the Indy hockey games there, right?
No, I haven't.
Fuel?
I've gone to a Ducks game in LA with Jen, but because her cousin has like season tickets, and they're like right on the wall. Yeah, right on the glass. And so it's really cool. And that was the first hockey game I'd ever been to. And the only the first and only. But I like it. I love all sports. Yeah. I just don't, they're just not high enough in my value category to watch them.
Right. And those tickets, if you would have actually paid for them on the glass, I'm sure they would have been like $200 for that seat
much
or something.
Money.
Or more. I don't know, in LA or Anaheim, like what those tickets are, but
yeah, and she even has like a parking spot like right by the stadium.
Gosh. Yeah, those tickets are ridiculous.
yeah, insane. So yeah, it was really fun, and it was like packed, and there was so much, and she like gave me a jersey to wear, and
that's great.
Yeah,
I like the pros, but like the pros is cool because they're really fast, and it's more finesse, I think, when you watch pros versus like minor league. Minor league is more rough. Yeah, and there's more action going on.
Yeah,
and there's more fights. So
it's
I would say overall I like it better.
It's kind of like minor league baseball. I fucking love minor league baseball. It's like, it's just like so chill, Yeah. And it's just like when somebody hits a home run, it's an actual thing, It's not just like, oh yeah, somebody just hit a home run,
Yeah.
Like it's
the pros seems like slower and more methodical.
Yeah,
and you know that they're taking breaks for commercials and ads and all that stuff.
Yeah, I love minor league sports. I think they're great. And there's like a minor league baseball stadium. Well, there are a lot of cops.
Yeah, it's right by your house.
Yeah, it's right. Like I can walk. It's maybe a mile.
Indianapolis Indians, yeah.
Yeah, and so
Until they change. Wait, are they going to change their name? They probably will, right?
I don't know. I
just realized they're still called the Indians.
I know. I thought they might, but I don't know. I mean, regardless.
Cleveland just changed their name.
Yeah. I don't know if Jamil likes baseball or not.
Baseball.
I'm sure he would like it for the act.
He'd probably like the hockey.
I think he would like the hockey. He doesn't really like sports, but he likes the social part of sports, you know? So.
Oh yeah, especially minor league. Like, those things are social as hell.
I know. You just take like a picnic and sit on the grass and like, hell yeah. That is
I was thinking at the hockey game. I'm like, they got a berm at the hockey game?
No. I was thinking of baseball, but yeah. I also like, Rachel asked me if I wanted to go to that mid-century thing, and I was like, no. It's my second weekend back, and I probably shouldn't leave. But honestly, I think he would have loved it because now that I've started dating him, he's figuring
out appreciation for it.
Yeah, he's figuring out what mid-century modern is, and so that's been fun.
Yeah. You don't get necessarily dulled to seeing more furniture because you've already had a love of it for so long that you have seen a lot. So I could. So someone new coming into it, he probably gets a lot of oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything like that, and you're like, oh yeah, that's an Eames chair.
Yeah, and I think that also he just didn't know that that's it exists, Not that he's necessarily into it, but because I'm into it, he's like, oh, I need to kind of figure out what this is. And so
as long as you can understand why somebody else has interest in it, not that you have to have the same level of interest, but
yeah. And for me, I don't know, people probably don't know this, but for me, my love of furniture and my love of mid-century modern furniture came from my very first job, where I worked for a production company, but it was small, and so it was these two people that went to my church, and so I started working for them, and he had the marshmallow couch, he had an Eames couch, he had 4 Eames chairs, the fiberglass ones. They had the tulip table. He had all just in this office was this collection of mid-century modern furniture, and he had a Herman Miller chair, and then he had books and books and books of the chair book, the furniture book, So I basically grew up where I found all my interests was at this job, and so that's where I kind of got my love for it.
Nice. I think I discovered another reason of something that I love now, and I realized it this weekend.
What?
Was my love of stand-up comedy, and I think it's because as a kid, when I would my dad would drive me to school every day, and we lived about 25-30 minutes from my high school, and he would always listen to Bob and Tom on the radio. Do you know what Bob and Tom is?
No, but that's fine.
It's a comedy show that's hosted every morning from 6 to 10. It's actually hosted in Indianapolis. It's local to Indianapolis. If you ask, it's a morning radio show.
Does
but
it
they
still
kind of
happen?
have comedies. Yeah, it's still on. I don't know if they have all the same cast or staff that are on it, but
okay.
It's like a comedy, show. They talk about stuff, and they always had a lot of comedians on that were doing shows in Indianapolis that weekend or in Louisville or whatever, and they would get on the radio show and they would talk. And then they would have comedy skits, and they would have different people on there, and they would just talk. And I think that's where I kind of got that itch for comedians.
Yeah, probably.
When I was younger, and you just subconsciously remember that.
Yeah.
And it's okay, now you're getting more into the comedians and discovering new people, and you hear the big names like Jim Gaffigan or the really popular people, or it's just local people that you just see, and maybe they're really clean, and they're something that your kid could listen to on the drive to school, and they just kind of get that little itch for what's funny and why it's funny and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. That's true. Yeah, I feel like all of my interests came from this job, and I don't know why, but it just maybe they just opened up this box inside me that was oh, this is what you like, I started watching MASH after, I think it was maybe right before I started that job, but during, we definitely talked about MASH a lot. And then Charlie Chaplin and old silent films became huge in my life during that time. And
just because you had a group that you could talk about it with that shared that, or they had the interest in it?
They had the interest in it, and then, like, it kind of transferred to me, you know?
They were like, oh, you've got to see this thing. I love this thing. I've seen it X number of times. You've never seen it? Oh, my gosh, you've got to see it.
Yeah, and, like, they would do movie nights for all of our friends and stuff, and, like, education, and, like, you know, Dave would get up and, like, talk about the movie and talk about the history, and then we watch it. And, like, sometimes they'd rent out the theater downtown that was a historical theater, and so somebody would play the piano while we watched, like, a Buster Keaton, like, silent film, like, at the theater.
Oh, wow.
So it was like that was, like, a huge part of my, you know, 14 to 18 life. And
you have these memories of that time and, like, who you were around and, like, the smells of the theater and the, like, you know, the whatever snacks you got, or, you know, the ritual of doing it on Saturdays, or, you know, whatever. Yeah. Nice. And then things like that happen over time. Like, I wasn't interested in Tiki until Rachel was super interested in Tiki.
Right.
Or, like, Michael Bublé. Like, I never knew Michael Bublé until I knew Rachel loved him. And then I'm like, oh, now we've went to, like, 4 concerts or whatever. And I'm like, hey, he's coming. I look at the concert. Like, you want to go to another show? Or, like, Norah Jones or whatever, you know?
It's funny how a significant other really just, like, changes the way you kind of, like, view things, and, like, makes you open up your, like, box of...
Yeah. But I can still shit on, like, rom-coms. Like, I'm still going to shit on her rom-coms that she picks and chooses to watch. I'm like,
obviously.
That's like a 6.2 on IMDb. Like, come on. But it's like, all right. I mean, I can see the appeal.
Yeah.
I was like,
I mean, I like shitty rom-com movies. They, you know, I usually skip the bad part and then just go to the ending. Oh.
But you already know the ending. That's the point.
I know.
That's why I don't like it. Because it's like, you know what you're watching here.
No,
like...
every movie ends the same way. I'm sorry to break this to you, but every movie, 20 minutes before the ending, there's something drastic that happens that's, like, really upsetting, and then at the very end, it, like, all gets resolved, unless it's the newest James Bond movie, which is infuriating and sad. Don't watch it. if you don't want to cry. Is it like
a finale kind of movie?
Kinda. I don't want to give any spoilers. So
spoiler.
I won't, but, like, it was upsetting. And then, okay, can I tell you what's been happening recently is that I've always hated Daniel Craig, like, ever since he started doing James Bond, because of his face. I just don't like him. And, like, I don't know why. I just, like, I think it was because I fucking loved Pierce Brosnan, which I know everybody's like, ew, what a sleazeball. I really, really liked Die Another Day. Like, that was...
I've never seen any of the Pierce Brosnan ones, honestly.
Die Another Day was with...
Halle Berry.
Her face? Halle Berry, and it was so fucking good. Maybe I just loved Halle Berry, but, like, it was so good. And in my opinion, because there was, like, an ice castle, and it was fucking bomb. Anyway, so, like, I loved Pierce Brosnan, and then Daniel Craig comes, and he looks like this snooty little rich kid, and I, like, I couldn't even get through Casino Royale, like, 10 fucking years ago, or how many years ago it was. And then finally, we watched the newest James Bond, which is the last one that Daniel Craig does. And then I was like, well, he's not that bad, I guess. And so now... So
it takes you to the end, and you're like, all right.
Yeah, so now I'm starting to watch all of the other James Bond movies, starting with Casino Royale, and I've decided that they're all fucking sad. But then, I don't know, I just, like, it's just a frustrating moment in my life right now with Daniel Craig and how I feel about him. And...
that's a series that's kind of like a Batman series. Like who's your favorite Batman? Who's your favorite?
For sure.
007, you know.
Yeah, 007, yeah.
I don't have enough 007 experience to say. I mean, I would probably say Daniel Craig, because I don't really watch the Sean Connery ones or the Pierce Brosnan ones, but I don't have any other. I don't have enough of a.
You know what's ironic and weird about the 007 series is that, like, so, you know, it's been James Bond 007 for so many years, and obviously I think they're trying to get out of, like, you know, I think for so many years it's been the same quote unquote person, but then when Daniel Craig started, M was like, I'm promoting you, and so I was like, oh, so he's new. And then, so is it a new James Bond every time? Or is it the same James Bond, just in, like, different stages of life? Or, like, what is it? And now, this is a spoiler, so skip. Spoiler, skip. Skip to a minute, like, skip a minute. Now, I'm not a super spoiler, but, like, now... Is it, you know, is it, like, it could be a woman, it could be a man, it could be, you know, that could be a black human, a white human, you know, like, they're trying to, like, make this, make James Bond more inclusive and more, like, you know.
I think it's supposed to be more wide-reaching, right?
Yeah, and as they should, and as they always should.
I don't know about like, what is the 007? Is that a role? Is that a title?
So 007 is a title. It is a number, so, like, you could be 005, you know, but 007 became the number of, like, that agent, you know, and
so that's his actual number.
That's his number, so he's
his
notorious identity for being 007, you know, and
so nobody else is 007 besides that person.
Right. And in the new movie, they play a lot with that. And so, yeah. Okay. So kind of crazy. So there actually wasn't any spoilers. But in the new movie, they kind of
I think you kind of knew that, though. They've been talking about Idris Elba and other characters or other actors, you know, teased out for who's going to be the next, you know.
Yeah. I'm excited for the next chapter of 007.
Okay. Yeah. Are you a Batman fan? Like, are you gonna see the new Batman with Robert Pattinson and stuff?
I don't know. I'm not really a Batman fan, and I'm definitely, as I've discovered, not a Spider-Man fan. I'm like 150% not a Spider-Man fan.
Okay. I'm not that big of. I'm just generally not a Marvel. Like, I'm not a superhero movie fan. Like, there's just too many out there, and they're typically just action for action's sake. And I'm like, there's too many characters to follow, and there's too many threads. And, like, I've only seen the first Avengers, not seen any other one. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like the Star Wars stuff. Like, I don't really have an interest in seeing that.
That's sad.
Like, I know it's going to be good action, but yeah, I don't know.
It is really good action. I feel like I am a Marvel fan. Not like a super Marvel fan, but, like, a couple of years ago, I went into this, like, crazy Marvel, like, downhill spiral where I just watched every single movie in order.
Oh, really?
In like 3 days. And so I remember when I watched Spider-Man, it was cringeworthy. Like, I couldn't handle it. I had to, like, take a break and walk into the bar next door.
Like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man?
No, not the original Spider-Man. The Marvel's Spider-Man.
Oh, like Tom Holland.
Tom Holland, which I like Tom Holland. However, I just don't like the character that he plays. It's just very, like, stupid.
I think once we started hitting, like, mid 2000s or late 2000s, that's when it just boomed. Yeah. And, like, I was in it when it was, like, you know, Batman Begins and Dark Knight and stuff, and then, like, early Spider-Man, like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and some of that stuff. But once you hit, like, Avengers and Thor and Hulk and all these other, like, it just blew up. That I'm like, I'm out. Like, that's just too much to keep.
Oh, see, that's the part I like. I like that they kind of all interconnect, and you know, they, like, have little, you know, and then they all kind of come together in the end, which is kind of fun. I loved Black Panther. That was so good. I think I've
never watched that.
I think you should watch Black Panther. That one was really, really good.
I think it was on Netflix. Yeah,
I really loved the Iron Man movies too.
I did see those. I think that was still early on. Yeah. That was like Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man to Spider-Man 3 timeline, I think.
Yeah.
Like when those first Iron Mans came out. And I was like, okay, I'm in on Iron Man 1 too. But like once they start getting to like the other ones, I don't know.
I put off watching Captain America for such a long time, because I didn't like the actor's face.
You didn't like Chris Evans?
Yeah, I don't know. He looks kind of dumb, and if you haven't,
I remember him in like Fantastic Four. Chris Evans.
If you haven't noticed,
those are like cringe if you watch those.
If you haven't noticed, like, I won't watch something if I think somebody's like face is not appropriate. Like, I fucking
Daniel Craig, Chris Evans is not on Becca's top list apparently.
And Elijah Wood. I fucking hate Elijah Wood so much. Like, he is just
like Lord of the Rings. Like, if you don't watch, I've never watched those.
Okay, I like Lord of the Rings. I liked Lord of the Rings, and I felt like he fit into that role. But he's just a fucking creepy human. Like, he has this like high ass voice. Like, he has this high voice, and it's like his face. Oh my god, Green Street Hooligans. I couldn't. I like tried to watch. I tried to watch it. It's so bad. Like,
oh my gosh. You want to watch like a throwback Elijah Wood? There's this movie called The Good Son. It's got Elijah Wood and Macaulay Culkin in it.
Oh no.
They're basically cousins, and Macaulay Culkin comes and stays with them. And Macaulay Culkin is a fucking demon child. Like, he is visiting, and he's like killing animals like demon. Like,
oh wow, like psychopath.
He's like got it out for his cousin, and he's like doing shit and blaming it on his cousin. And his cousin just wants nothing to do with him. Elijah Wood is just like a kid that's got this like that long Beatles looking haircut, and Macaulay Culkin is just fucking like crazy.
I think I could probably do that because he's younger, but now that like Elijah Wood's older and he still has that high voice, he just reminds me of a pedophile. I just can't.
I don't even know a newer Elijah Wood movie besides when he was Lord of the Rings. Like, I feel like there's one when he's like a young teenager or something that I'm thinking of, but I can't remember.
Well, Green Street Hooligans is when he goes to Europe and he like
never seen that.
Gets involved with this soccer league, and he's a reporter, and like he does a journal, and then they find his journal, and then it's just like a whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
If it could have been just like Snatch or something, I would have been great. It would have been great. It was just too awkward. I do love Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is versatile, and I like him.
Yeah, I like Brad Pitt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, who knew this was going to be so...
Our movie reviews? People are probably screaming.
Oh my gosh, they're like, these fuckers don't like... Ryan's never seen Lord of the Rings. They don't like Marvel. Like, what the fuck am I listening to these people
This is
for?
all you. This is all you.
I'm just building a bigger list to shit on me. I don't care.
I mean,
I don't care.
I think I've seen so many fucking movies that like, but that's just been half of my life, you know. Is movies.
I had this big like movie collection thing when I was a teenager and stuff. So I was telling my assistant last week that when I was a kid, I would always get. Do you know Circuit City?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. So I used to look forward to getting the ads on Sunday, and you open up Circuit City, and they have the, 3 for $7 movies or 3 for $10 movies, and you look at the stack. It's like a pile of movies, and it's all spines of them. So you're like looking intently at like what movies are in the pile.
Oh
and
my
God! You go in there, and they just have it in a big bin. So you just hope that the movie that you're looking for is there. So you can get them for that deal.
That's like the $5 movies from Walmart. Like,
yeah.
Oh, that's like the best date night too. Like if you have a DVD player, just like going in and just reaching into the $5 bin without even fucking looking.
Ooh, I'm not that risky. Fuck
and
that.
Picking it out. Ugh. Yeah, and like
I mean, honestly, that'd be better decision making than trying to saying, all right, let's go to Netflix. We're gonna find something like
that's the
I'm
fucking
so indecisive.
Worst. That's the worst.
We got my parents were over after the hockey game, and we were like gonna watch a movie, and it was from my Plex media thing, which is just a series of all the movies that I own.
You have Plex
it's like
too?
900 movies. Yeah.
Why didn't I know this?
What?
You have Plex?
I have a. Yeah, it's just the. Do you know what I'm talking about, right?
I have my brother's Plex.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, actually, it's his his friends. There's so many fucking movies on there. I didn't
realize that was like outside of your actual home network, so you can share it and then log into the Plex account and see everything, even though you don't have it stored at your physical place.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Can you just share them? Like, could I share it with you if you wanted to like see the library?
I think so. We should try it.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so they were like, let's watch something we haven't seen, and I'm like, good luck.
Yeah, right.
Because like, I mean, we ended up watching Stand By Me, which I don't know how my mom has never watched Stand By Me, but
oh, that's so fucking sad. It's like such a sad movie. Like, I don't think I'd choose that for a Saturday night.
But I've never seen it. Like I've heard about it.
Did she cry?
No, she didn't cry.
Okay.
We had take your drinks around the fire and watch Stand By Me.
I'm not gonna lie. On the we were watching the new James Bond movie, and it fucking like at the very end, I had to leave. I was like, I'm gonna start crying, and I had to leave.
You had to leave?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm like getting into depressed mode, and so it's a lot easier for me to cry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's
I'm
where
not
we're
like
at.
a movie crier. The only movie crier I'm in is like Field of Dreams. Playing catch at the end.
Oh,
Gets me.
that's so sad. It's I used to cry all the time in movies, like what, like Tarzan.
That you've seen a lot?
No, not the ones that I've seen a lot. Just new movies that I don't know
that
what's
like
coming.
get you. You're like I feel like the ones you see a lot, you actually you kind of overlook things when you watch them.
Yeah,
and then you like something hits because you're like, oh, I didn't notice that, and then you're like, oh, now you understand the characters like more.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's where I would see it more.
Have you seen Encanto yet?
No.
Okay, well, it's the new, like, one of the new Disney movies, and, like, all the kids are obsessed with it. And so when I went over to Teresa's and Brandon's last Sunday, Paige was like, Becca, you haven't seen Encanto? Can we watch it? Paige is 5. And,
yeah.
And I was like, yeah,
I'm sure her parents are, like, Encantoed out because they probably watch it nonstop.
No, they put a cap on how much they can watch it. Brandon,
you're talking about individual number of times that Disney lets you watch the video?
No. Like my friends put a cap on how many times their children can watch the movies. So like they didn't want it to become like another Frozen for them. So she's like, you can't watch it anymore. Like they can only watch it on special occasions and stuff like that. So.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So we watched it. And it's really good. And then I found out that I think I already knew this, but I'm basically a 5-year-old child. And I've watched it 3 or 4 times since.
Wow.
Because, like, it was, like, really good. And then I was like, oh, I'm just going to watch this during work because now I already know the songs and they're fun.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, we watched the Moana at my brother's.
Yeah.
Once during that, like I'd never seen it, and they watched it on repeat at that time. So I was like, oh, this is actually like good.
Yeah.
Like I can get with the songs and the story, and like it's not too bad. And I did like the new Lion King. Did you see that one? The live action, like that one's actually a little bit
tearjerker.
A little bit, yeah. Probably because it's like real looking animals, so it's like, oh, this is not just like characters, you know.
Yeah. I cried. I went to see Lion King in theater, and I remember, apparently we're just having a movie night. What we're going to talk about is not going to happen. Anyway, I was 5 years old when Lion King came out, and like 4 or 5, and
1994 is when it came out.
I was 4 years old when it came out, and I apologize for anybody that just felt old in that moment. I'm sorry. So we were driving to Lion King with my aunt and my cousins, and my siblings, and there was not enough room for me to sit, so I was sitting on my cousin's lap in the front seat, and I was still buckled in, but like I was sitting on her lap. And then we got pulled over by the cops, and I hate cops. Like, I hated cops at the time. I don't hate cops, but I like hated cops at the time.
You were 4 years old and you already hated cops?
Oh yeah. The hate for cops and firefighters came very early for me. Yeah, I include firefighters in that because I had fire trauma when I was younger.
Wow.
So anyway, I was traumatized by this cop pulling us over, and we could literally see the movie theater when he pulled us over. And so then he like let us off, and we were like, meh. And then we get to Lion King. It's fucking sad, and I'm crying the whole time, and it like completely traumatized me. We got the VHS of the Lion King, and we did not open it ever. It is still, gosh. I'm pretty sure my mom still has it in the original plastic wrap.
That thing's worth some money.
I mean, like, I'm not sure. I don't know if she ever did or not, but like, we never watched it after we went to the theater. We never watched it because I couldn't handle it.
Not even off of VHS, like other mediums? You've never watched it again?
I've watched it probably like 5 times.
Okay.
Like, I love Hakuna Matata. Like, I love all the songs, but like, oof, man.
Man, Elton John? Gotta love it.
Finding Nemo, I've probably seen 25, 30, 40, 50 times.
25 to 50, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there. Well, every Friday, my mom would be like, what do you want to watch? And I'd be like, Finding Nemo. That was in high school.
Oh, man.
I've been that little kid
in high school
all my life.
I feel like Finding Nemo was one of those like transitional period like movies. Maybe it was because it was that time of our lives where it was like, okay, we're kind of too old now to like watch this, like be excited about watching this, but it's also like a bookend sort of because it's like a new movie that's Disney. Well,
it was Disney Pixar. That's when Pixar picked up Disney, so it was like this new, you know?
Yeah. And it wasn't like Toy Story 3 or
wasn't
something.
Princess.
It was like the third. It was like a brand new.
It was different. Thing. Yeah. Finding Nemo and Cars. Oof. I think that the thing is that, like, I think that I've had anxiety all my life without actually realizing it. And so watching the same movie over and over just, like...
I think that's what Rachel says. Like, the same thing. It level sets. Like, there's no...
It's just,
You're not going to get any surprises here. You know exactly what to expect.
No surprises. Know exactly what to get. You enjoy it. It's like... I went through a time probably 3 months. I think
that's why we listen to the same music.
Yeah.
At certain stages of your life. You don't want the...
Absolutely. Yeah. I went through a time probably 3-4 months ago. Also, I have insanely crazy dreams. Like, I have a fucking movie dream every single night. Like,
like you're in the movie or from a movie that you've seen?
No, like, my dreams are movie quality.
Oh.
Like the other day I had a dream that I was in the strip mall and it transformed and there was a bunch of ninjas and there was magic and there was a dragon and it was like we had to like get the golden stuff and like we had to fight all these fucking ninjas and it was intense and there was like a fortress that built in the middle. Like, if I wrote
you sure
down...
you weren't in the set of Rush Hour or...
No, if I wrote down these dreams, I guarantee you plenty of sci-fi movies, plenty of like action movies, all of the above. So like I have all these crazy dreams, right? Because of the medication I'm on. And so like I went through a time there that I literally couldn't even watch a movie. Like any movie that I hadn't seen before, because I like would get like 5 minutes in and I was like, I can't do this. I can't.
You knew it was going to impact your dreams that night. You're like, I can't just, it's not done when this movie's done.
No, well, probably, yeah. And it was just like the stress of like what was going to happen was just like too much. Yeah. Wow. Craziness. Maybe we should probably start talking about what we're going to talk about.
I think that was fun.
It was fun. I would love to have movie conversations. We should have a segment every quarter that's like we pick something and review it. Like, let's talk about music next.
Like, why you listen to the same stations over and over? Because I sure do.
Yeah, why I listen to, like, I just start at the top of my playlist every single day.
The same playlist? Do you shuffle it at least?
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
Nope. I mean, like, it's a really long playlist, and I add new songs like every 2 weeks. So
Okay.
it moves down, but yeah. Anyway, okay, what are we talking about?
All right. So today we're finally going to talk about not finally because we haven't before. I'm saying because it's taken so long to get to this point today. We're going to talk about the difference between slips and underglazes.
Yeah.
I use both of them. Becca uses mostly underglazes. And we'll kind of talk about the situations where you'd want to use one over the other, benefits, pros, cons, all that kind of stuff that affect how you decide there. And then we might even dip into a little bit of stroking coats and things like that. So at a base level, I'm not going to get super technical with slips and underglazes, but slip, how would you basically explain what a slip is?
This is an intermediate podcast. We expect you to know a little bit coming into this one.
Or how we're distinguishing between the two.
Yeah, so slip is wet clay. Like if you take dry clay and slake it down to a wet consistency, it's basically like slippery Play-Doh. No, like pudding. It's like pudding.
Like pudding yogurt.
Pudding yogurt consistency. It can be thinner or thicker. That's what they use to slip cast with. Hence the name. And you can color it different colors and paint it onto pots and then do sgraffito that way. Or you can do underglaze. And let's talk about what underglaze is.
Yeah, what's the difference in underglaze? I'm trying to think. It's more of a... It's got pigment added to it, but it's not just clay. It's
a glaze.
It's got some other thing to it, like a gum solution or something like that. Are you Googling it? Mm-hmm. We should have come more prepared, but
do we ever come prepared?
I don't know. Shooting from the hip here. You know, It's funny because I saw Kurt kind of talking about underglazes recently and that he makes his own, so it was kind of interesting to...
Yeah, you can make your own underglazes.
See what made
so the difference between... I think that the biggest difference between slip and underglazes is that slip shrinks. Underglazes don't. However, underglazes have the ability to expand and contract with the clay as it moves through different firings. So... You know, like you can put an underglaze on at greenware stage or you can put it on at bisqueware stage. You cannot put a slip on at bisqueware stage. You can put it on at greenware stage, but it has to be wet at least a little bit.
The underglaze has like just the right amount of moisture that the only moisture that's coming out of it is not affecting the shrinkage of it. The slip still has moisture there it's still gonna shrink because there's enough clay in it that it still abides by the shrinkage.
Yeah.
That your regular clay body would.
Yeah, so it's sort of a slip, but there's not as much clay in the recipe per se.
Right. I'm trying to think of what was on Kurt's thing that talked about what was in it. I thought it was kind of interesting because he talked about there was something that's like semi-common, but it's not something I was thinking that was making up.
Is it EPK?
No, it was something else. It was like a household material or something. I probably shouldn't be figuring this out on the fly, but
well, this is what we do, so they're probably trying to figure it out anyway. Like if you weren't going to try and figure it out, somebody would pause the fucking episode and look it up on the Google, and then they'd try and find it too.
On the Googles.
Okay, it says slip and underglaze are both made of a mixture of clay and water. However, slip contains more clay and can add texture to pottery. Underglaze contains some glass-forming ingredients and behave more like a glaze. Also, unlike slip, underglaze keeps its color when fired. Slip tends to change color. Okay, I kind of agree with this, but also you can put texture in underglazes just fine. So that's inaccurate. But the more you do,
I think
the
they're
more
talking
they
about the
tend
viscosity
to crack.
of it.
Yeah,
kind of.
because they're talking about doing like slip trailing. You know.
Yeah. Do slips tend to move? Do they abide by gravity where underglazes may do something differently? I know you've been doing more painterly stuff with yours, so
I think the underglazes are really stable.
yeah.
Mine are, at least.
Does it depend on when you adhere them and put them on the pot, whether they're going to move?
Mm-mm.
Like if you put them, maybe I'm just thinking of like a slip trailing, like you mentioned, like it's thicker.
Yeah. No, and also, what was I gonna say? No,
I think the
it's
underglazes tend to move
solid.
more with glazes on top of them, though. Like they can move. Where
I
slips,
would,
colored
yes,
slips,
I
like
think,
are not gonna like.
yeah, I think some may, but I would say majority, most may not. Like, so here's the thing with like I use Stroke and Coats and Mako fundamental underglazes. Okay, so I'm a Mako lady. And Mako, if you want to sponsor me, I would love that. P.S. Somebody send this to them, please.
She will give honest feedback about your products.
I will, very honest, very honest. And since I use them, you know that it's good. Because fuck Amico. What? I didn't say that. We should probably take that out.
At least you didn't shit on my group.
Oh, Speedball sucks too. Anyway, Amico has great colors. I will give them that. But anyway, it's too expensive. So when you put a Stroke and Coat on like just bare clay, it's got more tendency to move than if you put a Stroke and Coat on an underglaze. So if you put Stroke and Coat on underglaze, it's staying put. It's not going.
And the
anywhere.
Stroke and Coat high level is a glaze. Stroke and Coat is a glaze.
A glaze. It's a shiny glaze. So when you put Stroke and Coat on an underglaze, it's not fucking moving it out at all. And when you put it on just bare clay, it's got a tendency to kind of flux a little.
Is that because the underglaze has that glass former in it? So it's like I'm gonna suck you to me.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna move.
Yeah, it must. I don't know why it does it, but I like noticed when I was doing the fancy cups that when I would do a thin line over the underglaze and then onto the cup again, that it was like spreading out once it got onto just the bare cup. So now when I do like a thin line, I always do a full thing of underglaze on the line first. And then,
so if you were to put a line on bare clay, underglaze, bare clay, like you could almost see like a shift, like it dropped a little bit.
Yeah, it spreads out. It like thins out almost. Like, but if I was gonna put it on underglaze, it would stay up and it would keep its textural like integrity. You know, like the textile integrity that it has, that like bumpiness. Yeah. So like if you put the underglaze down first, it's like prime. Like prime. But if you,
that could be an interesting technique if you were to like show that there's like gravity, and it's like, why is it not adhering to the same gravity on this part of the pot, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. So you do when you do your sgraffito, you do it with black slip.
Yeah. Right? So I use slips in black and gray. I don't usually use the gray that much, but the gray is just the trimmings from the black slip.
Okay, yeah.
With water, so it's got my white clay body with some black, and that becomes basically, I call like 50% black.
Yeah.
Like a medium gray. And then, but my black is, it's slip. So it's my white clay body, which is Iceman, broken down trimming bits, slaked down in water, and I do it all dry, weigh out 20% of a black mason stain. I think I do the 6600 or something like that.
Yeah, 6600 is black.
Yeah, and 20%
or jet black or something.
Dry weight into the dry trimmings, slake it all down with water, emulsion blender, And then another thing, I don't know what we talked about, but you can add water to slips and shake them up. I'm sure you could add some water to underglazes and shake them up, but you probably don't want to do too much of that.
No, you can.
You can.
I do. Yeah.
Does it change the intensity of it to do that?
I mean, you have to do more strokes, but like, I have some underglazes that dry out a little bit, and I just add a little water into it and then stir it up. It's fine.
So those are black, and I mostly do the black that way because I use a lot more of it.
Yeah.
And I think I can generally get a couple good coats on it, and it's covered. If I were to use underglaze, I would have to do 3 coats.
Yeah.
To get a good even coverage. I don't know about with black underglaze because usually I'm using colored underglazes for that stuff, and those generally need more coats anyways because they're not as dark to cover up the clay body. But yeah, you do have to get it at the right consistency. All of those get added at greenware stage, all the slip or underglaze. And yeah, I the main reason I have the difference is the cost of the thing. Even though if I wanted to, I could ask for black underglaze from Speedball and they would give it to me because they are nice to me and have been for a while, and
they have a relationship,
partnership. Yeah. But yeah, I just like the slip, and like you said, you could put it on a greenware. It's not gonna have issues. I have had issues with some of the underglaze colors. Certain colors do well, certain colors don't. So I tend to stick with the colors that do really well, that are consistent, that I know can come out well. There's just more room for issues, I think, with underglaze versus slip for me.
Right. Well, and I think that you put a clear glaze over the underglaze. Like, I don't put a clear glaze over, so I don't have that extra layer of compatibility.
Kind of the variable, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is something to definitely consider because, like, if you did a colored slip, the likelihood of you having an issue is very minimal.
Like, it's basically like your clay. It is your clay, but it has color added to it. So like the only issue would be the colorant. Is the colorant an issue?
Yeah, sometimes the colorant can be an issue. So like if it was cobalt, you would just have to set it to it would have to gas out more in the bisque. Or if you did a slower bisque schedule like what we have on our Instagram page, that should work for cobalt. It's just like iron, you want it to gas out and get, like a dark clay body, same thing. You want to make sure that you're getting all of the particles out. I don't know the technical term. Josh is probably yelling at me right now. All of the you just want to make sure that all the gases escape. And I've had the same issue with cobalt blue too. You just have to get them out. Sometimes you'll get bubbles under your white glaze or your clear glaze if there's a blue under there or a red or an iron base. So so that's what I would say is if you want a solid color under a clear, I think your best bet is a colored slip if you can do a colored slip. Now, so both of my studio mates, Sarah Anderson Ceramics and then Merritt Metzger, they both do Sgraffito, and they both swear by Amico underglazes, which totally fine. I don't do Sgraffito. So I know that, and they're different. There's all the underglazes are different. So,
the brands is what you're saying.
Yeah, the brands. And Merritt was telling me, so she tried Speedball, she hated it, and the reason she didn't like it was because it basically rehydrated her pots, and it made them too wet to work on. And I think she tried Mako. I haven't heard how she liked it, but the reason that she likes Amico is because you didn't have to do as many.
It's a more intense color.
Yep, you didn't have to do as many coats, and you can see it's just an easy there's a little bit more depth in it. So when because she's doing really fine Sgraffito and birds and flowers and stuff. So, and same with
when you say
Sarah.
depth, are you talking about the thickness of the layers?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and Sarah does a lot of vibrant colors, and she mixes her own colors and stuff. But I've noticed that like she'll do like pretty hefty layers on top of other colors, and the Amico does an okay job. But what I've noticed, and I think that everybody would say this is the same thing, reds have an issue, and they always will. Always. I think in
whatever colorants that they have to do to get to that.
Red is
pigment.
It's just hard, and so they're always gonna like bubble a little bit, or like they're just I don't know anybody that has good luck with reds. So I mean, like, even
I don't know, some of that is it's some of the fight you put up with is, do you go with the fight, and do you stand up to it and just figure it out and troubleshoot until you can get that resolved, or do you avoid it? Do you say, you know what, I can change my palette a little bit and avoid that one color?
Right. Like, you'll notice that my pottery doesn't have a lot of reds in it. If it's shiny, it won't have red in it. And the reason being is because Stroke and Coat's 74, which is the reddest red they have, bubbles at cone 6. It doesn't bubble. It orange peels, so it like has little tiny pinholes at cone 6, and like you can get around it. You can biscuit again and do some things, but like I've just found that and like you can do lighter coats, but I want a really vibrant color, and I've just found that it's just easier not to.
Just don't do that.
Yeah, and it's just the way it is. Like, like the darker the red, the more a pain in the ass it's probably gonna be. And in my experience, I could be wrong.
I feel like that's why we always hate the people that'll ask for, can I have it in red? Because you're like, I know that fight that I'm gonna have to go through if I say yes. Yeah, and I just don't want to put up with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with firing schedules. I mean, I've found that firing schedules help with those, with reds at least, and blues. Like just doing a really slow schedule and maybe holding at a certain time, like a slow crawl up. That could be, it just might be the way that you're firing your pieces, but yeah.
Positive result, by the way. I got my best kiln firing last week. Oh my gosh. Consistently top to bottom.
Ooh.
And it was great. I think it was one of the first times that I actually filled a whole kiln and fired it on my like newer schedule. That was not just like a bunch of kiln furniture and some sporadic shit. It was like a normal kiln filling for me.
At this house.
I did that. Well, I mean, on that schedule, like I've never done that schedule, which is like a medium cycle in that big kiln, in the L&L kiln.
Oh, you mean not doing a fast firing made your pots better? What?
I think, looking back at it, I think the fast firing is the big reason why my kilns are not consistent from top to bottom.
Shocker.
And have been.
Shocker. I'm shocked. I'm fucking shocked.
Not shocked by the tone of your voice.
Like, duh.
So I just had to lay it down here.
I love you, Ryan, so much.
Medium worked perfect. Fucking mint. So I hope that has a positive impact of some of the issues I was having with my underglazes. I did not have the underglazes in this kiln firing, but
oh, that's a very good point, and I think it definitely will.
Because some of the questions and some of the issues I've had with the underglazes are on specific colors.
Yeah.
Where they were coming out and the color was kind of peeling away. Yeah. And you could see the bare clay through it. There was no glaze on it.
It crawled off.
It kind of looked like it like rolled, like the underglaze like rolled away. It wasn't like sharp or anything, but it kind of looked like an exit wound of like if like a bullet went through a piece of paper or something and it like peeled back.
Okay, yeah. I think that definitely a slower schedule will help. Gosh, maybe even a slow schedule instead of a medium schedule. Maybe. Are you doing Josh's BIS schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that was one of the first introductions of the slow biscuit schedule that he was doing, and that was probably like a year and a half ago. Because I went through, is it because I'm putting too many layers on of the underglaze? Is it that this bisque schedule is not slow enough? It's not doing enough during the bisque cycle. Am I not bisquing hot enough? I think I might have been bisquing at 08 at that time, or 06, and then it was like, do I need to go to 04? Is 04 going to affect the underglaze result? And then it was, okay, we got those variables out. Now it gets out of the bisque kiln. What do we do from here? Do we sand and sponge the pots because they have underglaze on them? I would say one characteristic of Speedball is they do tend to be a little chalkier.
Yeah, definitely.
Amico's might be a little bit more silky smooth, I think. I don't know. What do their pots look like, Sarah and Merritt's pots, when they come out? Like, are they fairly smooth? I feel like the black that I've used in Amico has been some pretty smooth.
Yeah, the velvet underglazes, I think they're smooth if applied correctly. But also, I haven't done a test from... Oh, no, I have actually. I used some Amico on one of my pieces on one of the fancy cups, like the smaller ones, and I was not a fan. But that's because the Mako, like some of the Mako glazes, when you paint them on, they're fucking golden smooth. Like, they're so smooth. And then when they fire, they're like even more. But there are some colors of the Amicos that do that exact same thing, like the orange and the chartreuse. Oh my god, the chartreuse Amico color, best underglaze color of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway,
is it like your glasses color?
No, these are yellow. It's just like a light green. It's like, it's kind of like this, but like duller. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel like probably in my opinion, which is obviously biased, as we know, in my opinion, it goes Speedball, Chalky, Amico, and then Mako. But there's some colors of Mako that are more chalky than some colors of Amico, so they're kind of like back and forth.
It depends on which one.
Yeah, and like, and obviously, like, when you use somebody else's underglazes, I keep mine super clean. Like, you know me.
You mean like in the bottle? And
yeah, like I keep them super
like
clean.
letting it get caked up on the rim,
Yeah,
so it's not actually a tight seal.
Right, there's no crusties, I'm like super on top of that shit, and when you're using other people's and it's like really crusty, that has an effect too, because they're not like perfectly smooth. So
right,
Amico right out of the bottle versus Mako right out of the bottle might be very similar. Now, that's on bisque though. On
greenware.
On greenware, when I was doing the the screen printing medallions.
Yeah.
So what I noticed is I used Amico at one point, and I used Speedball, and then I started using just underglaze. The Speedball
just underglaze. You mean
just slip? Sorry, slip. The Speedball underglaze dries a lot faster than the Amico underglaze on wet clay.
On greenware, which is good for me doing it at greenware,
it was
and
great
painting
for me
on layers
too.
And getting a solid wall of color.
Yeah, so I definitely prefer Speedball if I'm going to screen print anything.
Which makes sense because they're a screen, like they specialize in screen printing.
Exactly.
Product,
yeah. And then, but I have a question. Could you mix, like, let's say that you were having an issue with your yellow, okay? Your yellow underglaze. Could you mix that in with a little bit of clay? Like, if you were going to be putting it on greenware anyway, like, could you mix it with a little bit of clay, and would that resolve the issues?
I don't know. I don't know if would the clay actually like spread into the underglaze and like
the
absorb
slip?
and yeah.
I don't know.
Because with slip, you would just add water and then you would submerge the dry clay into it. How would you get a wet clay mixed with, or would you just make a slip and then mix slip with the liquid underglaze? I mean, that would change the color of it, right?
Well, what if you like just had a tiny bit, like, I wonder if you could just put a tiny bit into the underglaze, like just like a small ratio, and you just put a yellow stain in it or whatever, and just mixed it in. I wonder if that would fix your issues of firing, because
the fit issue,
like if it would bind better,
I don't know.
That's a question.
So I never finished the rest of the issue troubleshooting parts, but
sorry.
The next step was getting out of the bisque, and then I was like, okay, sponging it off, right? Okay, so sponge it, clean it, sand it, whatever, lightly sand it, get all the chalky stuff off.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking if you dip it in a glaze and it's chalky, there could be areas that don't fully adhere to the pot.
Right.
And obviously if you sponge them, like, wait a day so it like completely dries and stuff, so you're not glazing.
Did you submerge it all the way in water?
Yeah, I did some dunking in water. I did some running it under running water and sponge it. I did it like with just a light sponge with water on it and just wipe it. I feel like even running it underwater and sponging it is fine.
Yeah.
They still dry out after a period of time. And then I went the whole glaze route. Like, am I glazing it too thick? Is the glaze having issues? Because there's a whole thing about, like, is there zinc in your glaze, and is it zinc free? And I even used the Speedball glaze. They gave me some of their clear glaze and tried it with that, and did some back and forth tests and see, like, how is it the thickness of the glaze, the thinness, the firing schedule. So I think the end result that I came up with was definitely sponge them after they're bisque fired.
Okay.
I still do the slow bisque schedule. So slow bisque schedule, sponge them after bisque firing,
and submerge them in water. Submerge.
Yeah, submerge, wipe them really well with the sponge. You can even do a light sanding if you want, but just, something good to get all the dusty parts off.
You know, be a good thing to scrub them with is a scrub daddy.
Yeah. I was just using like a 200 sanding, sandpaper.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I think the issue was the specific gravity of my clear. I think my clear was at like 160 specific gravity, so it was a little thicker.
Yeah, you need it to be thin.
I need it to be more like 145.
Yeah, clear needs to be thin as fuck.
So I think that was my issue. I started having better results with that, and I'm having better results that way. So it took me a lot of trial and error and a lot of troubleshooting to figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, there still are some colors that cause issues.
Yeah.
That, especially when I carve through them, some of them have issues where you just look at the sliver that comes off, and like the underglaze is just not as stuck to the pot. But that could be when it's applied to the pot.
Hmm.
But
that's interesting.
And do you ever have underglazes that when you put them on, it's like when you put it right on the pot, it might adhere really well because it's soaking into clay versus like on top of other underglaze when you're like painting layers? That it's like, does it adhere well to the other layer differently than adhering to clay?
Since I don't work on greenware, I'm gonna pass on this question because that's not applicable to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely depends on when I apply the slip. Like, you want to do... Generally, I want to do it at like a hard, leather hard.
Yeah.
Because I'm using the diamond core. They're pretty sharp, so I'm not worried about like doing it at... Plus, it just dries quicker if you do it like a hard leather hard. It soaks in, takes the moisture in. The first layer goes on super quick because it's soaking it in like a sponge. And then the subsequent layers take a little longer, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So how is your underglaze application different on bisqueware? Because I have no experience with bisqueware application.
I'm sure mine is completely different than everybody's. I mean, I'm sure everybody does something completely different. That's the thing about, like, as we're talking about underglazes and slips and stuff, is that everybody does their own fucking thing, you know, like like everybody has to figure out what works for them. I use my underglazes pretty much exactly like paint, so that's how I use them. But here's the thing. So
how do you mean by that? You're not painting it right out of the bottle. You're making your own palette. Is that what you mean by making, like, using it?
No,
like
I paint them right out of the bottle. I don't have time to mix.
Okay.
I don't want to mix them
unless you're doing a gradient or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So they have fine colors. So but the difference is, so when you paint with underglazes, you have to remember that it's soaking it up so quickly on the first pass that you have to be aware of that. So like if I'm going to do a gradient, I'm not going to do the first, like normally when you would do a gradient with regular paint, you'd start with the lightest color, and then you move to the second lightest, and then you'd move to the darkest, you know, and you kind of like move your way up. Well, so if I'm like painting a triangle or whatever, you know, you wouldn't fill in that whole space immediately. But with underglazes, because it's not like paint and because you are painting it on bisqueware that's soaking up that color so quickly, so this would be different than greenware versus bisqueware. Greenware, you could get away with like kind of moving your way up because it's not soaking it in really quickly. You have a little bit more time to move, but since it's bisque, you have to, like, if I'm going to go yellow to red in a gradient, I'm going to paint the entire triangle yellow first. Okay.
I don't know enough about painting to know how you would do that in paint.
You would not do that because with paint, you know, it wouldn't dry. So I'm going to paint that entire triangle yellow first, and then I'm going to move up my gradient, because if I don't paint that entire triangle yellow, then I'm going to see a hard line where I stopped painting the first time.
You're giving it a wet surface?
I'm giving it...
Or a more wet surface?
I'm actually giving it a less... Yeah, I'm giving it a less absorbent surface. So when I paint it with yellow first, it's got a blocker on it. A little bit of a blocker, so that when I paint it the second time, it's not going to dry as quickly.
Okay.
So
there is more moisture as you apply color. There's more.
Right.
There's a barrier, and it takes longer for that to dry, so you can actually get a clean transition.
Right.
Okay.
But I'm still going to be painting it like it's a much faster process than if you were using acrylic paints. You know, like I use 4 different brushes, and like some of them I hold in my mouth, and I'm like doing it super quick because it's gonna dry.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So.
Do you have? Is there a way to do, like, I don't know what the technique, but is there a technique of like a fan brush that you would have multiple gradient? You would create a gradient and you would like get the gradient from the palette.
Yeah,
on the brush, and you would apply it that way.
So you could do that. I think you're yes, you could.
But you have a wider gradient, right? So you can't really get all that on a brush.
Well, yeah, and also it's not going to look as good, and it's not going to be as pointed where you want it to be. But what I was thinking of that actually might be fun experiment is doing you know how Speedball has the Speedball like rubber rollers for printmaking?
Mm-hmm.
Like
oh man, what do you call those?
I can't remember.
Oh gosh, it's something with an L, I think.
Litho?
No, it's like a litho print.
Lithograph or whatever. But anyway, they have those rubber rollers, and you can roll them in the ink, and then you can roll them to make like a gradient, and it looks really cool. You know,
brayer?
Maybe. Yeah. A brayer.
Yeah.
And so you can roll it to make a gradient. That might be really interesting to like roll it and then roll it onto a pot somehow.
Yeah, just like you would do for like printmaking.
Right, because that doesn't absorb any ink, and the underglaze isn't going to dry super fast, but it will dry. But yeah, that. I mean,
honestly, that's kind of how. Have you ever seen like Jason Burnett make screen prints for like easel transfers? Or I went to a workshop with him, and he does this. It's in his it's probably in his book. I can't remember the name of the book. We'll Google it, but he was doing a gradient of color, and it was with underglaze, and you basically, put it out on a
glass.
Not on the glass, but on the actual like thing that you're gonna push it through the screen.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he was kind of doing the different colors, and then you kind of like mesh them together, and you make the gradient, and then you use the rubber thing to pull it through. Yeah. And then as you do it, you can kind of like build up the gradient better and better.
Yeah.
As you do it, and it's not like a hard line. You kind of like layer it in a certain way that it looks gradual all the way across.
Yeah.
So he's doing it for the transfers that are like screen print transfers.
Yeah.
Underglaze transfers.
Oh, that's another thing. Can you do... I wonder, can you do... I don't think you can do transfers with slip, can you?
Like slip onto newsprint?
Yeah, can you? You must be able to.
I mean, you can. Yeah. I mean, think of like Katie Miller. Do you know Katie Miller's work?
Yeah. Is that slip?
That's slip. Yeah, okay. That's colored slip.
Yeah.
It's very time sensitive, right? I mean, you can let it dry out, but you have to be aware of how much moisture you have there.
Yeah.
I actually really like that technique where you're kind of painting
backwards
the foreground first, and then you're painting layers on top of that of slip.
Yeah, it looks cool.
And then you put it on and you peel it off. I kind of like that like aged look, sort of.
I do too.
Like where those pieces are missing, I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's
that
cool.
Imperfect look is really cool. Cardboard Tim does that too. He screen prints onto phone books and then keeps them. Like he'll do like 30 at a time, and then he like puts them on. And he has like it takes a long time. He like burnishes it on, and it's a process. I remember when I was trying to figure out how I wanted to do the medallions for my mugs, and I watched him do it live, and I was like, I'm not fucking doing that.
Yeah.
I thought it would take less time, and I'm like, nope, that's going to take way more time. I'm not fucking doing that.
Yeah. I mean, seeing like Jason Burnett's work where he, like in person at his workshops and stuff, like just the process that goes into the underglaze prints,
so much
that you apply. I mean, that's what Amy Brumman does.
Yeah,
a little bit with her grids, but I mean that's just the base coat of what she's doing, and then she adds to it. But just that process of putting it on at the right stage, burnishing it really well, getting the moisture level right to peel it off.
I think Amy uses not Sandbow, but she uses an underglaze transfer.
I think she uses Isla Transfer.
Isla, yeah.
Which is Jason Burnett's company. Or he's one of the owners of it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. You know what I think what I thought when I started was like there's got to be ways to like speed up everything. And there has to be shortcuts. And you know what? In pottery, there just really isn't.
Some of it's like you can find little shortcuts here and there of improving it.
Yeah.
Like I've always wondered if there's a liquid slip way that I could have colored slip, and if I were to dip my pots in slip, would they be pigmented enough?
Sure.
To where I could keep, like, I kind of like the fingerprint part, right? So it's like you mix the fingerprint part where it's like handmade, but it's also kind of rugged because it's dipped, so it's not going to come out perfect every time.
Yeah.
If I were to mix that kind of rugged look with the carved, like structured, tight lines look, how that would result. And like what level would the slip have to be at to be dippable,
Really thin, and you could put sodium silicate in it to really thin it out. Or whatever that's called. Water it out or whatever.
Flocculate
it, that's the word.
Getting all sciencey. I don't even know what that means exactly, but I know flocculate, deflocculate. I think flocculate is thin and deflocculate is thicken.
I don't know. I don't fucking know. What was I gonna say? When I was doing the earrings, I made a ton of colored slip. And normal, I just used the old shitty slip from the back. It smelled so bad. And
when you mean from the back, you mean you like scooped it out of the trough?
Yeah,
and like mixed it with a blender or something, so it's the right consistency.
Yeah. And
Slipcasters are like, oh my god.
Yeah, well, you know what? You should have seen us trying to do a slip casting for the first time. That was a fucking disaster. Um, me and Andrew, there was plaster everywhere. Oh my god, it was fucking terrible. So hard. I have so much respect for slip casters.
And the precision with those molds and stuff.
Like no. I love it when people are like, slip casting isn't pottery. I'm like, you're fucking right. It's not. It's so much harder.
Man, I was going down the route because I'm kind of like collaborating with somebody that does slip casting, and these tumblers, like I want to make, I'm like, is slip casting a better option? Like if I could go the slip casting route, what am I getting myself into? But could I just make like a simple tumbler that would be cool for like tiki glasses, or just a basic tumbler that I carve? And I'm like, it's so much easier, right? You pour in the color, you pour it out, you pour in the clay color, you pour it out. Like, but it's like, oh man, what do I got to get to that point? And then how much time does that take?
I don't think it's easier. I don't think it's faster. I don't think it's better. I mean, no, I do think it's better. I mean, like, I do. I think it'd
be cleaner. So it's like, it would be perfect. It would be nice to just get, somebody else could do it. It would lose a little bit of my hands, but I would get my hands in the carving part. But it's like,
yeah. I mean, but what I will say is like Heidi changed to slip casting. She used to throw primarily, Heidi Fehrenbacher used to throw primarily, and she likes it so much better. And her shapes are just
it's
like
probably
fucking...
the precision of it probably outweighs.
Yeah, but it's so funny.
And the decals and the illustrations is a big part of her slipcast work
huge.
Too, right?
It's huge. And she just realized that just for wholesale, just having the same mug body was nice. And also it's so much less stressful on your hands. Like,
oh, I bet.
Like I'll probably have to fucking switch the slip. I was actually thinking about that, like
the contouring of your hands and fingers and stuff to throw those pieces. Whereas you really just have to have the strength to pour heavy things, pour them out, and then have the dexterity to like clean lines up, right?
Right. And so it's still, unless it's a one, if it's a one piece mold, you don't really have to clean as many lines up, but. I mean, obviously everything that you do is still going to affect a muscle because you're doing it over and over and over and over again. It's going to affect some muscle consistently. Right. So obviously there's still issues with that, but
there's probably back issues and stuff with pouring heavy molds out.
But yeah, she likes it so much better. And I'm like, I don't even know how to make a fucking mold. I am so bad. Like I tried to make molds for those earrings and it took me fucking ever. And like just making like
because you were going to pour a cylinder, right?
Yeah. And I did end up making molds. So I poured a cylinder and then poured them out so I could make earrings and like cut the earrings off. And it was just
because they're circular earrings. They're just basically discs.
They're just rings.
Like rings. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a lot, but it was just easier to throw them.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's like a tool, right? If you know the tools and the skill sets of like mixing plaster, I'm like, I only mix plaster when I need to make a reclaim bat.
And when we do that, we do it wrong sometimes.
And I'm like, I've recorded a video of making a reclaim bat like 3 times because I fuck up the proportions. And
every single time.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm pretty like specific with my measurements and stuff. Like I'm that brain, like I'm good in that space, but it's like I haven't done this enough to
I didn't learn when I learned plaster. I never learned how to measure plaster. I just learned to sprinkle it in until the mountain grows and it doesn't sink.
Yeah. And then the slip casting, there's way more specificity to it because of the amount of water it needs to suck out at what rate, and then how long the mold's going to last and all that kind of stuff that factors in. It's not just does it absorb water to get your your reclaim to a part that
I feel
you can...
like I'm not like a forward thinking person enough to be a slipcaster. Like you have to make like a mother mold and then you have to like, do all these things. And I'm like, can we just make the fucking mold and like just do it? And then when it wears out, I'll just retire that shit.
I'll just be done.
I'll just be done with that shit.
But you can only use that mold 100 times. And it's
right.
like,
well, 100 cups it is.
I thought the whole point was the production, so you could get a lot. And you're like, oh, well, that one mold is only going to last me for 15, 30 minutes, and then I can't use it again for a day? What? So how many molds do I need to have?
Exactly. Like, that's
how
the
much
other
slip
thing.
do I need to have? Like,
that's the other thing about slip casting that nobody ever thinks about is the fucking space. Like, can you imagine? I mean, I don't know if anybody has ever done a bargain where you have to, like, you buy a kiln, but the molds come with you. Like, fuck that. All of that. Fuck it. Like,
you know how many people are trying to get rid of mold? I got like 100 molds I'm trying to get rid of. Does anybody? No thanks.
Nope. I mean, like, they take up so much space. Anyway, this is just our appreciation post of slipcasters.
Oh my gosh. That's why you can really appreciate like looking at Kurt's slipcasting process or other slipcasting process where you're like, oh my gosh. And then you can just go super basic with the slipcasting. Like Sean and Valeri, their slipcasting is very simple.
Yeah,
but
it is.
The designs that you can come up with through the application of the slip process can get so detailed. Oh my gosh, it's just nuts.
It's just nuts. And I think, Kurt is breaking rules. like in a good way, but like, typically the rules of I wouldn't say rules, but like the suggestions that I've gotten all the time when I was like becoming a potter was simple form, complex glaze. Complex form, simple glaze. Like, and Kurt breaks all of that. He's like, I'm going to do a complex form with fucking texture, and then I'm going to do this badass glaze on top.
And then he's also like, coming back around to the simple form, and then people are like, that's just a basic cup. Why does it take all that sophistication and technology to get to that basic simple cup? But it's like, the glazes are what shine here. The glazes... some people buy it for the glaze. Some people buy it for the form. Some people buy it for both. Like, my pieces of his that I like the best are the ones that are black underglaze, and they've got that simple micro crystalline white on top, and it just breaks over the texture. And I'm like, those are my favorite. I don't like the drippy glazes as much as the simple with the texture.
And like, so he's like breaking all of the rules of form and glazing, which is good, and he's achieving that, which is amazing, and yay for you. But it's just like, where do you... I don't even know why I said that, but I think I said that because I was gonna commend you on that, Kurt, because it's really great. He's not gonna listen anyway, but it's fine.
I'll tell him you said that tomorrow when I try with him.
Yeah, tell him. But yeah, it's fucking crazy. Like, I also think too, along the lines of like how hard slip casting is to us. I think that it's a lot more simple to be a slip caster if you're only a slip caster. It is more difficult to be a potter and a slip caster, but it's easier to be just a potter, just a slip caster. I would say being both is hard.
I feel like the timing of balancing it all is just...
Yeah, that would be tough.
So tough. Especially if it's just you. Like, if you have staff, like, maybe you can offload. I mean, that's kind of some of the idea, that hopefully you can have other people that can do some of that for you.
Yeah.
That
but
if
also
you can make it teachable.
Like, so much stuff you have to have.
Yeah.
They don't overlap very well. Like, they overlap in glazing. That's it.
Yeah. But, like, all the equipment you need to have an efficient slip.
Yeah. It's a lot. Like...
Yeah, and I'm like, you know what? It's probably not any less time to just throw the piece.
It's not.
Rib it off, cut it, let it dry overnight, and then trim it if you need to trim it, or thumb it off, and then let it sit in a damp box. And it's exactly like you want. It's the exact thickness you want. And then put the underglaze on top of it, or put the slip on top of it.
I would actually love this. I would love to not challenge, but see from like Kurt's perspective, or somebody who has a slip casting studio that's like production. I would love to see the comparison of like me throwing, like,
if you had his simple basic mug form, like throwing that.
No. Or, well, just me throwing what I throw. Like, not like doing the same exact item, but like, say we're going to make mugs, just mugs, you know, and he makes as many as he can in a day, and I make as many as I can in a day. And then we see how that progress goes, like, you know.
Is it different because there's a certain number of factors that he can affect before he comes in that day? Like, he can have X number of molds made.
No, I think that that's not different. Okay. No.
It's just based on his time and what he can physically handle by himself.
Yeah, it would just be interesting to see, or even with a team, you know, it'd be interesting to see the turnaround time of a, like, 100 mugs thrown to 100 mugs poured. It would be really interesting to see that turnaround, because we could turn around 100 mugs in a week. Easy.
You mean start to finish?
Start to finish.
You've done it.
We've done it.
A lot.
I mean, I've done it a lot, but like even the whole team at Gravesco could do it, you know? Like,
I think it depends on what the look you're going for too. Like,
no, I mean, but it's still the same
you're just
thing.
talking about the end product, yeah.
Yeah, like if he was just dipping glazes, like single glazes, like if he had a single glaze or whatever, just like a simple white or whatever. But like, because he's spraying glazes, we don't spray.
Well, he's spraying underglazes. I don't think he sprays actual glazes that much that I know of.
Yeah, but like, you know, it would be interesting to see the time difference and what that entails. It would actually, I would really love to see a production potter, a production hand builder, and a production slipcaster do everything for, like, you know, see how long time it for 100 mugs or 100 cups.
I've never heard the term production hand builder, but that just sounds agonizing on my hands. But
there are production hand builders, I guarantee it.
100 mugs for a production hand builder. Oh man.
Rebecca used to work for somebody who did primarily hand building.
Well, I'm sure there's totally systems for production hand building that they probably have molds and stuff if they're production.
You have forms that you go around most of the time. Yeah. And it's not like tight, you know, they're not tight forms. Like you're just rolling up the bottoms.
Whereas the slipcast is inherently tight.
Right.
Because that's part of it.
Right.
But they also have the time that you're saving on is you don't have to clean seams.
Exactly. You do have to trim, but trimming takes 30 seconds. There's no way you can, like, or 30 seconds to a minute. I could trim a mug body in about 30 seconds, but then putting the handle on would take maybe 30 seconds more.
Yeah.
Maybe a minute.
30 seconds to put a handle on?
Maybe a minute. They're extruded.
Okay. Right, okay. What about the time to extrude them, though?
You have to count the time to extrude them, which Bradley does. Bless.
Yeah.
But still, even extruding the handles, I still think it would be faster.
Yeah, I mean, the handle attachment part, that's got to take some time. The seaming, the handle attachment, and the cleanup of that. Mm-hmm. And then once that's done, it's on the shelf and it's done. But, you know, what is that amount of time?
Right.
Versus the time it takes for you to trim, attach a handle, and that's it, right?
Right. Okay, so here's our other question. This has just gone off the fucking rails.
Hey, there's a slip thread throughout here.
Okay, sure.
We talked a lot about underglaze on the upper half.
Okay, so I think that... Okay, so yes, Okay, we've decided that probably slip casting takes longer than throwing. Especially because you have to wait a certain amount of time when you pour everything in, you know, for it to dry and stuff. Okay, so we've decided that that is potentially longer. However,
I don't know.
I think it might be longer. Okay, but I'm deciding that it's longer.
Maybe.
Okay. As opposed to a production facility doing thrown pottery. Okay. Now my question is, or not my question, but my observation is, I think that it would be a longer learning process to do pottery well than it would be to do slip casting well. So
I like that.
So I think that inherently...
You're saying the amount of things you need to know for slip casting and the skill set to do slip casting well
takes...
Is it just a little bit more...
It's a little bit more user-friendly.
Versus like taking intuition a little bit and like a little bit of experience. Like you need more hours behind production throwing?
I think you do. I think you need more hours behind the wheel than you do behind a mold to learn it, to the capacity of being professional.
Are you also behind the mold? Okay. What about this? I mean, there's like slip parts too, like understanding, are you just getting slip?
No, I agree. Like, obviously, like, you know, getting your clay to the right consistency, getting your slip to the right consistency. Yes, but I think, like, specifically, like, being at the wheel and learning how to throw, it's taken me, 10 years to get to this level. I think that Kurt is at...
Who is the shortest tenured person in clay that production throws at Gravesco? Not like years in clay kind of thing, would you say? Is there somebody like 5 years or under?
No, because
like having been throwing for 5 years, or
probably Merritt is the shortest time throwing, but she's been throwing since high school. But, like, you know, there's production potters at Sunset Hill Pottery, that they teach them from the ground up. So, yeah, I mean, like, if you're doing production, it takes a lot faster to learn, for sure. If you're doing production every day and learning production, it takes a lot faster. So if you're learning production throwing versus learning production slip casting, I still think that it would be faster to learn production slip casting than it would be to learn production throwing. That's not saying that it's harder to do slip casting or throwing. It's just that
we're just talking about time to, like,
time invested.
I want to say like expert, or like time to proficiency or something.
Time
like
to
that.
Intermediate, yeah. I just think that, and then I think that you peak in slip casting. Okay, it's like...
Oh, this is going to be a controversial statement. I can already tell.
No, I don't think it's going to be controversial because, like, so here's what I think. I think that it's a little bit easier to learn the basics of slip casting, and then once you get to the top, once you get to, like, where you're, like, at peak status, you know, where you're, like, I'm, you know, making really good molds. Once you get there, that's when, like, finessing is really important, and it's, like, really, like what Kurt's doing, you know, he's finessing his skill, right, to the best it can be, right?
But how do you know what goes into that trajectory?
I don't. And so this is what I'm assuming. So I'm assuming that, like, learning the process at the beginning is like, okay, I've learned the process, and then once you get to the, like, then okay, so you're, like, fast to learn, and then you're, like, leveling off at, like, getting really fucking good, right, at slip casting. Now, I think that pottery, like throwing, is different. You have to get really fucking good at the basics, and then it moves up fast. Like, you have to spend
because you're just repeating the basics.
Right, you have to spend a lot of time at the base level, and then you got to move up fast to where you're, like, figuring out your style and all that shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that I think it's opposite in that regard. That's my assumption. That could be very wrong.
I think the real finesse and the real sophistication of the slip casting is the mold making.
Agreed.
I think that's where the like, expert level comes in of like how you make a mold that's to this quality and like.
But I think that comes over time. Like, you know, you're not going to make
together.
you're not going to make like your first mold's going to be really shitty. Obviously, I mean everything is shitty, and like it doesn't matter what you're doing for the first time. But I do think that like the concept of learning it's a lot easier to understand right off the bat, and then you have to make it good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's different where the concept of learning the basics of throwing can take a long time.
Because I'm sure there's decision points where you're saying I'm limited to my knowledge of how to make a mold of this thing because that defies the physics of molds and how molds work. But once you understand mold making enough, you can probably say, you know what, I'm badass enough in this part of it that I can make something and be like, that came out of a mold?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Have you seen, do you follow Van Tiki?
I think so.
He makes tiki mugs.
Yeah.
And they're all, he sculpts them and then he makes these super sophisticated molds out of them. And he only makes like 200 of each piece. And then he breaks the molds and
so he's like what I would do. He's like, I don't want to make another fucking leather mold.
And these pieces are like, they're nice.
Okay, I'm looking him up right now. Oh,
Van
shit.
Tiki, VANTIKI. He makes production, like, release mugs for very high-end tiki bars.
Oh, yeah. I've seen the banana one. Okay.
Yeah, pretty nuts, right? Like, it's like, that is slipcast, but how else would you get it? And they're like super artistic. Claw. Yeah, just the artistic part that comes into the just building the form in 3 dimensions and then making a mold of that form is nuts. And then, you know, Kurt's side of it is he's 3D printing the thing. So instead of being a really good sculptor, he's a really good like technology 3D modeling skill set.
And he knows how to
And then there's some people that are just like, they're really great at illustrations and drawing and stuff where, you know, they can, like Katie Miller can do these drawings and slip that are organic and they're painterly or they're, you know, they have these certain motifs and they can have that work with their pots. It's just crazy how many different ways you can do this. And just like slip is just one part of it, you know? Or underglaze is just a way to get there.
Yeah, it's just fucking crazy. I'm watching him make a crab claw. And I do follow him. And I have noticed all the things.
Making the crab claw like he's sculpting it?
With Sculpey, yeah.
Yeah, nuts, right?
Insane. Oh, little banana. Ooh, banana. Can I just say really quickly that I really enjoyed Donkey Kong N64. Like
I never had an N64 as a kid. I had PlayStation 1. And I went over to my friend's house and we would play N64 and I was so jazzed about it, playing like Pokemon Stadium. I didn't really play Donkey Kong that much. Maybe Donkey Kong Country?
Yeah, Donkey Kong Country was my jam. The Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country.
I had
1 and
Donkey
3,
Kong on the Game Boy
2.
Color or the old Game Boy.
Did you have 2, 1, or 3? 1, 2, or 3?
Donkey Kong?
Yeah.
On Game Boy, Donkey Kong 1.
Country.
No, it was just Donkey Kong. It's just called Donkey Kong.
Oh, that Donkey Kong.
On
Okay.
Game Boy, where you just had to run up the ladders and go up the thing to.
Oh wow, that's pretty retro right there.
Yeah, it was not a 2D thing. You were just going within the screen.
I mean, I had Donkey Kong 2 on Game Boy, like Donkey Kong Country 2.
But was that like a 2-dimensional where you were going through a map and it was panning as you got to the... No, that was not Donkey Kong 1.
Yeah, it was on Donkey Kong Color. Game Boy Color.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, God, I fucking miss Game Boy.
We had Game Boy. We had Game Boy Color. We had a Game Gear. Do you know what Game Gear is?
No.
It was like a Sega. It was a Sega Game Gear. It was like the size of... God, it was fucking huge. It was like a... It was like the size of this case, honestly. Like this case here. That's how big the fucking thing was.
Oh my God, like 9x6.
It was like old school PSP, like the PlayStation Portable. It was like the PSP, but it was like way bigger. Played like NFL 95 on it. Or, God, terrible games. Big Hurt Baseball.
My neighbors had a Sega, so we'd always play Sonic. And
Sega.
Then we had a Super Nintendo.
Is that the NES, Sega NES with the gray console with the purple slide things? That's Sega, right?
Oh no, Purple Slide was, well, they were both purple and gray, honestly. The Sega was more square and it came down. The purple came down, and then the Nintendo had the slides. So the Super Nintendo had the slides, and then you pop the thingy in on the top. The Sega, I can't remember the colors of the Sega, but you lifted
Sega was black though.
Yeah, it must have been. You lift the cartridge up, and then you put the game in, and then you close the cartridge. So, yeah.
Oh man, throwback. Yeah, the first console we had was the PlayStation 1, and then we got PlayStation 2, and I still have a PlayStation 2 actually.
We never played PlayStation. We were always...
And then Xbox came out. And...
Yeah, I never played Xbox either. I would sometimes...
I never had the original Xbox. I had the Xbox 360, and that was the last game console I've ever played.
I would sometimes play Halo with my brother, but...
Mm-hmm. Play a little bit of Halo 3 on Xbox 360, but...
humiliating moment of my... Not really one of the humiliating moments of my high school life was that I would always hang out with these guys. All my friends were guys, and I went over to I would take this kid into school, and he became my friend. And we went over to this house for like a Game Boy, like a Halo party. And I was playing, and I was so fucking bad. I was so, so bad. And they were like, everybody, because they were playing with people like out of the state, like.
So it was like it was like the first iteration of multiplayer.
Yeah, over the internet. And they were like, who's number 5? They're fucking terrible. They didn't say fucking terrible. They're so bad. And then my friends was like, she's a girl. Give her some slack.
Oh, my God. She's a girl gamer.
And they were like, oh. And then I just stopped playing. I was like, I'll just eat snacks.
Oh, man. Because you're like, I feel bad. I'm taking up a controller from somebody that would be really good at this.
And it's so infuriating, right? Like, if you're playing
especially when people are watching you. There's spectators in the room watching you play, and they're like, when is it my turn? You fucking suck.
Or they're really good, and they're like, why do you suck?
Like, what? You don't just understand this? You can't just kill at this game, like, immediately?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't just come home from school and spend 6 hours playing this game.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't think we played video games very often when I was growing up. Like, I mean, we played it on holidays. And
we played quite a bit, but you go over your friend's house that has this certain game and they're really good, and I'm like lagging at it because I'm like, I don't play it all the time. So it's like, oh, it's a treat to go over there and play it because it's like a new game for me, but they just like live in it all the time. So they're just kind of dulled to it.
I can't play like shooter games. They're too fast for me. My like ADH brain just can't do it.
Oh, I can see that. Like a
like
Call of
people
Duty
are like
or something like that.
Around, and I just like, I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. Like,
can you even watch people play it?
I can watch. Yeah, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. See how we started this show with movies and we're ending it with video games? You know how also that this was supposed to be a fucking fast episode?
This was supposed to be a 45-minute episode. We're at an hour and 49. What the fuck happened, Becca? What the hell happened? We were talking about movies for like fucking 45 minutes.
And we really didn't like actually talk about slips and underglazes. We like brushed the surface.
I think I should. Okay, to book it, I think I do want to go the dipping slip route. Like, I want to see if that's actually possible.
I want to help you with this.
I want to do that. I need to figure out the right viscosity. I need the slip to make it dippable. I'm sure there's some math and science about how to do that. And then adding the right amount of colorant, which I think is probably doable. I just need to figure out the right amount of dry material to get a decent liquid amount so that I can dip it into the bucket. So it's probably going to be like, kind of like mixing a glaze. It's probably going to be like 3,000 grams or 5,000 grams to get a decent amount.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to try that.
Yeah, it's too bad you're not doing the inside, because then you could just do a glaze fountain or something.
But I would be dipping it at greenware. So I kind of like, maybe it'll be a different line of like kind of sloppy, or not sloppy, but like
quick.
I think somebody does some slips like that, and I'm thinking of who it is. I feel like a Justin Ross thing, but I don't know that he does that.
I don't know.
There's some people that do that where they they dip it and slip. Yeah, that's the dipping in and slip is definitely like a atmospheric firing thing where you do like flashing slip, and you dip it in there real quick to get like that layer on there.
It would always scare the shit out of me to like do a once fire so that you have to dip it in glaze when it's green. That's can't.
Actually, that technique counteracts the thing we talked about, a slip. Like, you do use flashing slips in wood firing that you do it on bisqueware. You put that slip on a bisqueware.
Well, I don't know anything about that.
And those are actually some of the cooler results. It's like super bare bones. You just dip it in flashing slip.
Oh,
which is mixed to kind of like a glaze.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's not a glaze, it's a clay. It's a slip.
Interesting.
But I guess it doesn't shrink so much that it...
Right, it must not shrink at a crazy rate.
But they come out really cool. So yeah, I'm gonna give that a go.
Wait,
and that's not gonna be too bad. What?
Is this episode coming out next week?
Probably.
If you've lasted through this whole thing, we know that you're a true follower. But also, I have an update happening on March 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I feel like I should put
shameless plug. You got to put it in here.
Put my shameless plug out. I think it's going to be
shameless. We're not shameless.
Not really. I mean, it's our podcast.
I'm proud that you're planning this far ahead. I'm impressed.
I'm not, because you know why?
You planned it like 20 days ago, didn't you?
Yeah, and it was a mistake. I should have just updated when I update like I normally do. And like yesterday, I posted something on Instagram and I was like, oh, the update. And I go to the countdown and I pull it up and I was like, 7 days?
You're like, I already picked the countdown date. Oh, shit.
I was like, 7 days? I have 7 days to get the shit done? Like, there's like 30 cups. No, there's 40. There's like 40 cups that I have to get done this week.
Fancy
painting.
Cups?
Yes.
You got to finish painting them?
I have to finish sanding
right now,
them.
And you've got...
They're bisque, and I haven't even sanded half of them. Like...
Oh, shit. So where are you at in the life cycle of a pot right now?
Everything's
of one of your fancy cups? So you're at like, is that like 30% of the way through?
Yeah.
In the full life of your pot?
Probably.
Oh.
Like, I can sand the butts after I sell them if I need to, because you won't be able to tell if it's shiny or not. You know, I can sand those at the end, but I like to sand everything before, because then, you know.
They do photograph really well if they're sanded.
Yeah,
like
and what if you break it or something, you know? And, but I think that most of these cups are going to be like the more artistic, sloppy glazed styles because that's a lot faster.
Oh, I got you. That's what we saw on your shelf that was, hey, we're trying these.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are you going to put some simple ones in there so you got kind of a price range and you make it easier on yourself a little bit?
There's small ones that are $50 and then the big ones are $100. So, I have 20 small ones and I think 20 big ones.
When you say big ones, you're talking about like a
normal
14 ounce or 12 ounce. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then small ones, you're talking like 8 ounce.
4 to 6. 4 to 6.
4 to 6 ounce. Okay.
Yeah, I'm positive I'm not gonna sell out. Like I never sell out, but like I'm not fucking Hammerly Ceramics, but yeah. So I did one with lines that was really cool. So I'll post a picture of that tomorrow because it's in the kiln and glazed. But yeah, so I gotta paint my little heart out this week.
I think you like that pressure, though. I think you kind of thrive under it.
I do thrive under that, but it's stressful. I really ideally need to get everything done by Wednesday, fired Wednesday, and then on Thursday and Friday, I can sand everything down.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sanding that I hate the most. Like,
so. I bet.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we'll talk on the next episode or one of the future ones because I want to talk about the this or that experiment I'm doing and see how that goes.
Okay.
So I'm releasing those in a couple days.
Yeah, your glaze.
And we're gonna see how that pre-order deal goes.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I'm a little worried, but I think it'll do okay. We'll see.
Expectations low. That's
I'm trying to push myself to utilize my mailing list more, and I'm gonna see how it goes.
Okay, I believe in you.
All right.
And with that, we will say adios.
Yes.
Goodbye.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching, listening, all that good stuff.
Thanks for bearing with us while we talk about movies and video games.
Very terribly.
Because it was the 90s. Sorry. We know each other much too well. Okay. Bye. Yo, higgity, yo. It's Becca here. Hey, just so you know, thank you for listening. And also, we have... What do we have again? A Patreon. We have a Patreon that you should go, and if you want to donate to, you could donate to it. If you don't, that's cool too. But just Google Wheel Talk Podcast Patreon. Don't do the other one, because there is a Wheel Talk on Patreon, but it's not us. So make sure you get the right one. It's in the show notes. And also, leave us a review, because they're fun to read. Okay, bye!